Six Sigma process documentation. Now we're going to continue in the control phase by talking about process documentation. Once we improve a process, we need a way to make sure the new process is clearly understood, repeatable, and sustainable. That is where process documentation comes in. Process documentation helps capture how the work should be done so that people are not relying only on memory, tribal knowledge, or informal habits. In Lean Six Sigma, documentation is not just paperwork. It is a tool for consistency, training, communication, and control. Process documentation. Process documentation is the act of clearly describing how a process works, step by step. You can think of it like writing down a recipe. A recipe does not just say what the final dish should be. It explains the ingredients, the sequence, the timing, the method, and sometimes even what to watch out for. Good process documentation does the same thing for work. It helps people understand not only what outcome is expected, but how to produce that outcome consistently. In Lean Six Sigma, process documentation is used for several purposes. First, it helps us understand how things currently work. This is often called the as-is state. Before we improve a process, we need to know how the process actually operates today. Second, process documentation helps us find problems and inconsistencies. When the process is written down, gaps become easier to see. We may notice that different people perform the same task differently, that steps are missing, or that responsibilities are unclear. Third, process documentation helps standardize best practices. Once we find a better way to perform the work, we need to capture it so the improvement does not depend on one person remembering what changed. Fourth, process documentation helps train others. New employees, backup operators, cross-trained team members, and support functions all benefit from clear documentation. Finally, process documentation helps sustain improvements. This connects directly to the control phase. If the improved process is not documented, it is much easier for people to drift back to the old way. Table of contents. In this section, we'll focus on three common types of process documentation. The first is standard operating procedures, or SOPs. An SOP describes the standard way a process should be performed. It usually gives a broader view of the process, including purpose, scope, responsibilities, safety or quality requirements, and the major steps. The second is work instructions. Work instructions are usually more detailed than SOPs. They explain exactly how to perform a specific task. This may include step-by-step directions, pictures, diagrams, tool requirements, settings, checks, or acceptance criteria. The third is forms. Forms help capture information consistently. They can be used for inspections, audits, checklists, approvals, data collection, changeovers, maintenance, or problem solving. Each of these has a role. SOPs define the standard process. Work instructions explain the detailed task. Forms create consistent records and evidence that the process was followed. Together, they help make the improved process clear, repeatable, and measurable. Let's use a manufacturing example. Suppose a project improved a setup process to reduce first-piece defects. The SOP might define the overall setup process, who is responsible, when the setup must be performed, and what quality checks are required. The work instruction might show the exact setup sequence, required tools, fixture orientation, torque settings, offset verification, and first-piece inspection steps. The form might be a setup checklist that the operator completes and the supervisor reviews. If all three documents are aligned, the process is much easier to control. If they are missing or inconsistent, the improvement may not last. Think about your own workplace. Where do people rely on memory instead of documented standards? Where do different people perform the same task in different ways? Where would a clear SOP, work instruction, or form reduce confusion, errors, or training time? Those are good places to consider improving process documentation. To summarize, process documentation helps make work visible, repeatable, and sustainable. It supports understanding the current process, identifying inconsistencies, standardizing best practices, training others, and sustaining improvements. In the control phase, documentation helps protect the gains created during the project. The key message is this: if the improved process is not documented, it is much harder to control. Good documentation helps make the new standard the normal way of working.